Welcome to Sunday Springboard with Melanie and Kimberlyn Coaching, where we help women recover from and flourish after stress and trauma. I used to believe if something was not going my way, that it meant that I needed to obsess longer and harder, and eventually I would find a way to make it go my way. If it wasn't going my way, it meant I just hadn't thought about it long enough, obsessed about it long enough. I believed I could figure out the right thing to say, the right thing to do. And if it wasn't going right, it just meant I need to think about this longer. This kind of thinking absolutely made me crazy because sometimes we are in situations that are major upheavals and changes that we did not choose and they are out of our control. And it does not matter how much we obsess, how much we think, how much we want this to be different. We have no control over that. And what do we do with that? Maybe a loved one has passed away. Maybe we are in an unwanted divorce. Maybe we've been laid off from our jobs, evicted from our homes, dealing with reconstruction after a storm. Maybe we're going through a pandemic. What do we do about that? So, we've been talking in these last weeks, we've talked about trauma and stress, what this does to your body. Then we start talking about change. Why is change hard for us to do? We talked about last week about the trauma bomb. What if we just absolutely cannot bring ourselves to get ourselves out of a toxic situation, and some tips. Today, we're going to talk about what do we do when we're in a situation we absolutely do not want, do not like, did not choose this. What do we do to move on? We're going to talk about this and find some more solutions to help us with these unwanted changes. If you missed any of my past videos, I record them every week. You can watch them on my business page. You can go to my website, kimberlyncoaching.com. And on the Springboard page, you can find all of my past videos. So let's decide what to do to start off when we're in this situation. How do we even start with it? First of all, let's just determine whether this is actually something we have no power over or not. So if you can do something, you're going to want to do it. And if you can't, then you're going to have to move on with the steps in our talk today. What helped me with this a long time ago when I was starting to realize that I was so obsessed with things that I just could not let them go when they were something I didn't want, was to use the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So look at your situation. Talk about it with an objective person if you need to. Determine, is there anything I can do? If you think there's something that you can do, then you need to do it. And that's where you need some courage, possibly. Maybe you need someone to help you work out what to do. But if you get to the point where you decide, I've done everything I can, there is nothing left, I'm stuck here, and now I just want to figure out, how do I go on living? How do I regain a sense of happiness, a sense of joy, a purpose in my life? Okay, so there's some steps of grief, 5 stages of grief. You've probably heard about this. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identified these many years ago. And these are actually relevant to any kind of grief, which means recovery from addictions, any kind of big changes, because there is some grief in all of this. Whenever you leave your job, there is grief. There are people that you are leaving. There are situations. Maybe there's security that you're leaving. The pandemic, there are things that we've had to grieve. So these 5 stages actually are relevant in anything that you're dealing with. So the first stage is denial. This can't really be happening. I'm going to wake up and it's going to be a dream. I just can't believe it. Sometimes people absolutely refuse to believe that it's happened, and they refuse to do anything about this. When you have an extreme event happen, this denial is an okay thing. It's a way to help your body and your brain take it slowly. Because sometimes if you had this situation just boom, like, you have a loved one, just all of a sudden they have passed away, or these extreme things, sometimes we just can't handle them all at once. So the denial can be helpful actually at that point, because we can let it soak in as we go along. So if you're at the very, very beginning and you're in denial, this is not a bad thing. It's an okay thing. But hopefully you're going to move along out of the denial, and then um, actually you will move along out of the denial. And one day you may wake up in a whole lot of pain. When you get to that point, you're probably going to end up in anger. This is the second level. Another thing about these levels, they're not actually stair steps. You may go up and down and back and forth with them, but the level that the order that we're talking about them is the general way that you're probably gonna feel them. So with anger, okay, yeah, this is what has happened, but I'm so angry about it. I'm so angry about it that I can't even think straight. Remember what we talked about, how when your brain senses danger and it pours all those hormones into your body and turns you into a Hulk. This is Hulk mode here. We're in anger. We're flooded with all the hormones. We're angry about it. We can't think clearly. Maybe we're mad at a person. You did this to me. Or maybe we're mad at God. Why did you do this to me? Maybe you're mad at yourself. Why did I do this? Maybe you don't even have anything specific to be angry at. You're just angry that this happened. This is, again, perfectly normal. It's possibly a good thing in some places because it may get you moving. The next one is bargaining. Okay, this is real. This happened. I'm angry about it, but I realize that I cannot stay at this heightened sense of anger forever. So I've got to do something. So you're bargaining. Okay. This is kind of a last ditch effort to gain some control over the situation. If I do this, this won't be so bad. If I do that, this won't be so bad. If I do this, maybe God will change his mind. If I do this, maybe my partner who left me will change his mind. Or maybe if I just went and just talked to my boss, maybe. Okay, so in bargaining, we realize it's happening, but we're still trying to figure a way out of it. What can we do to make this not so bad? The next step, when all that doesn't work, the anger doesn't work, the bargaining doesn't work, we end up in depression. We finally, out of the denial, we are realizing nothing is changing this. I'm in this terrible position. I do not like this. I do not want to be here. And you just face your loss head on, and you're sad. You're sad, you're vulnerable, you're overwhelmed, you're depressed. At this point, this is okay. If this goes on for a super long time, you may need to get some professional help. You may need to get some antidepressants, medicines. You may need to go to a psychiatrist. This is an individual thing here. You may need to get some extra professional help at that point. Or you may not. You may just work through this depression. And as you work through all this, generally you're going to need some help. And I'm going to tell you some options later on. Then you move into finally acceptance. Okay, I've accepted my loss. I'm going to move forward, acknowledging the reality of the situation. Now, I think that a lot of us have a hard time even contemplating accepting the situation, because it's like, if I accept this, it's saying I'm okay with it. And that is not at all what acceptance is. You can accept something that you're absolutely not okay with. So when you accept it, you're saying, I accept that this is the way this is right now. Okay? It doesn't have to always be this way. It may change. It may get better. It may get worse. I'm not okay with this. I don't like this, but I'm accepting that this is where it is. This gives me a place to put the pin in it, stop right here, and then say, now, this is where it is. What can I do to move forward in the way that I want to move forward? Okay. So it's not saying that you're okay with it. It's just saying that you realize that this is what reality is. So these different stages, as I said, you don't go through them all the way through and you never experience them again. You could get into acceptance for a while and something can happen. You could get triggered and you can move back into some anger or back into some depression. It's all perfectly normal. It's just something that you want to be aware of. And as we move forward, then you will be more into the acceptance, more into the happiness and the lighter side. But it's not saying you won't ever jump back to the others, and don't feel bad. Don't feel like there's something bad going on if you fall back into one. This is perfectly normal. Now, there are some thoughts and beliefs that can keep you stuck in these different levels. That I'm sure that there are many more than my list, but these are the lists that I've come up with. So one of the things that I see that people are really stuck with is like, why did this happen? That why question is going to kill us all the time. Why did it happen? How could he or she do this to me? Why was I the one got laid off? Why were my pipes the one that got burst? Why did my person die? Why did I have to be married to this person who is treating me bad and has left me now? Why? And I've seen so many people that they're just stuck, that cannot move on because they're trying to answer a question that they're not going to ever get an answer to. Now, I'm going to give you a story that might help you on some of this. If the question you're asking why is about why did he or she do this to me? How could they do such a mean thing to me? I've got a little bit of a story that might help you on that one. So this is my snake story. So there's this woman, she's up on a mountain, it's freezing cold. She's trying to hurry to get to the bottom of the mountain. And the snake comes up to her and he says, "Oh, please, lady, would you get me down to the bottom of the mountain? I'm dying, I'm freezing. Would you wrap me in your coat, take me down to the bottom with you, and so I won't die, won't freeze to death." She's like, "Well, no, of course not. You're a snake. You're going to bite me. I'm not going to get close to you." He says, "Oh, no, please. If you will do this for me, if you'll do this good thing for me, then when we get down to the bottom, I won't hurt you. I'll just leave you alone. Just please, I'm dying. I'm freezing. Please wrap me up and take me with you." They argue about it for a little bit, and she finally believes him. She believes that if she does this good thing for him, that he will not hurt her. So she wraps him up, takes him down, get to the bottom of the mountain. He bites her. She's like, "Oh my word, why did you do this? You said you weren't going to do this to me. I did this good thing for you, and you promised you weren't going to bite me." He said, "Lady, I'm a snake. Snakes bite." If you are dealing with a snake in your life, that snake is probably not going to change their colors no matter what good thing you do for them, no matter if they tell you they won't do it to you. So this helped me in my past whenever I would try to figure out, why is this happening? Why would this happen? I could just say, a snake does what a snake does. So that might help you with that. But for the most part, that question is not answerable. We need to try to keep our minds off of that question and ask better questions like, how can I move on past this? We're going to talk about that in a minute too. So here's another thing. If you are a God believer, if you believe in God, or if you're a Christian, you might think, why did God let this happen to me? Here I have, I've been living my life for him. I've been having faith. I've been obedient, and he let this bad thing happen to me. And we'll think of that verse, Romans 8:28, where it says, "We know that God causes all things to work for good for those who love him." Well, this feels like a very bad thing. Why did he let this happen to me? We don't often read the next verse, and the next verse talks about he has chosen us to become like his son, like Jesus. Sometimes the hard things that we go through help us become like Jesus, or they help us depend on Jesus or grow closer to Jesus, or have a testimony to help someone else. So if we're a Christian with this kind of mentality of, why did God let this happen to me? It's okay to ask those questions. It's okay to be mad at God, but eventually you're going to have to come around to some faith and believe these verses where he says it. He works everything for good, but our idea of good and his idea of good are not always the same, and they're definitely not always in the same time frame. So I have two stories that might help you with this. So one is, this young man told me just the other day that he is getting a full ride scholarship to a university. Some people at our church thought that he has just done such a good job, and they want to bless him with that. He said, "I was in a long-term relationship, about 4 years. And he goes, we broke up because I was so bummed. I was so sad. And I thought, why did God let this happen?" And he said, then now I've been given this opportunity to go to college. And he said, then I realized God was working in that. Well, that is great. God was working in that. But what if God doesn't make it turn out the way you want it? What do you then? I have a sister who lost a baby in a very, very sad way. The baby did not get to come home from the hospital for all different reasons. They tried to have experts come and look, and they could never find out what was wrong with this beautiful, beautiful baby girl. And she ended up passing away at the age of about 2 months. And my sister had very strong faith in God, but her faith was rocked. God, why did you let this happen? I prayed. I had all these people all over the world praying for this baby. We believed, and this baby did not live. And so she went through a time of disillusionment and wrestling with her faith. And she said, I finally came up with four options that I had to go with one of the four. The first one is there is no God. Second one, there is a God, but he doesn't care. Third one, there is a God. He does care, but he's not powerful enough to do anything. And the fourth one is there is a God. He does care. He is powerful, and I just don't understand him. And that's what she had to end with, because if you don't believe in God, you're kind of out there in a black hole when you're talking about these kind of things. So if you are going through an issue now and you're asking God, why did you let this happen? Then you're going to have to just work on having some faith that you will either now or later, you will know that there's a purpose. And if you never see a purpose, that at least that God is growing you through this. Okay, here's another thought, belief that may keep you stuck in these harder levels and keep you from moving on. And this is unforgiveness. Now, unforgiveness is really a big thing. And so we're going to pull out forgiveness, and we're going to do a whole session on it next week. But for today, we're just going to go really quickly over some different ways that it can be a problem for you. So one, if someone actually did something to us, someone actually committed a sin, an evil, a criminal act, or whatever, they have done something to us to hurt us. We have a hard time forgiving them. And I think that one of the reasons we have a hard time forgiving is that we think that if we forgive them, it's like we're letting them off the hook. We're actually not letting them off the hook. Number one, they're not on the hook. If they're really a really evil person or really not a caring person, they don't care if you forgive them or not. Or two, they don't know that you haven't forgiven them, and they're not even thinking about it, and they're not caring about it. So they're not on the hook. The other thing about it is what goes around comes around. If they are sowing seeds of this kind of evil in their lives, eventually at some point, they will reap the consequences of their sin. So you forgiving or not forgiving has no bearing on letting them off the hook. The problem with not forgiving them is that resentment is the poison that we take, hoping the other person is gonna die. When we do not forgive and we keep a resentment, we are the one who suffers, not them. And that will definitely keep us stuck in moving on into our levels of acceptance. Now, maybe we are actually suffering consequences of our own actions. Maybe we've done something stupid or something bad or something where we are suffering consequences, and we're so upset with ourselves. We're mad at ourselves. How could I do such a thing? How could I be so stupid? What was I thinking? And we are so full of guilt and shame that once again, we can't move on. We may feel like if we forgive ourselves, we're letting ourselves off the hook. And maybe we feel like we need to suffer. We need to suffer some punishment or some payment against the guilt and the shame that we have. Again, this is not going to help you moving forward, and there's no need for this. We'll talk about that more next week. Here's another one. What if we allowed someone to do something to us? We allow them to make us a doormat. We allow them to abuse us. We beat ourselves up now. We're thinking, how was I so stupid? Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I see the red flags? Why didn't I realize it? Can I ever trust myself again? Again, this keeps us stuck. And like I said, forgiveness is so big. We're gonna spend the whole session next week on forgiveness. For now, just think about this: the thoughts that are coming into your head that are keeping you stuck. Determine which one of these have something to do with unforgiveness, whether it's forgiving another person, forgiving yourself, forgiving God, or just forgiving the world if you're just feeling like the whole world is against you. Okay, here's one more thought that can keep you stuck is thinking you're too broken. I see people post this a lot. I'm so broken. I don't believe I'll ever be happy again. I'm destroyed. I don't have the ability. I'll never be happy again. If you watched my videos on trauma, or if not, please go back and watch them. We talked about the perfectly normal emotional responses to the biological experience of all the hormones. And some of those emotional responses are feelings of hopelessness, sadness, depression, inability to see the future, inability to enjoy the things that you used to enjoy before. So if you're having these feelings, it's perfectly normal because you're still probably running around with all those hormones in your system. So don't beat yourself up about this and don't believe it. You're not too broken. You may be sad and angry and you may feel hopeless, but you don't have to believe everything you think. Did you get that? I'm going to say that again because I really love that. You don't have to believe everything you think. Okay? You can enjoy life again. You can, as you learn to regulate your body, learn to get these hormones metabolized out of your body, you learn to stop these thoughts that are keeping you stuck, and you start moving through the levels, then you will once again be able to have joy and happiness and purpose in your life. Once you feel like you're kind of starting to be ready to move on, here's just some tips. So, one of the things that can help you is to think of a time when something felt like a really bad thing that happened to you and it turned out to be a good one. I have another story for you. I was working with some attorneys and they split their office, and I was over here with the ones that I liked working with, and these other ones were moved over here. And because of situations going on, they determined that I was going with the group that I didn't want to go with. I was so upset. I was so mad. I thought, I'll just quit. But that wasn't going to do any good because the thing I was upset about was I didn't want to leave these ones over here. So I just kind of had to go with it. I was out of control. I needed the job, needed the money. So I just went ahead and went with it. Went with these people over here as they started making their new business and a new office and everything. And it turned out to be an amazing experience. They let me be involved in everything setting up their office, which ended up being really great for my resume. Not only that, but I was moving within the couple of months that I ended up working for them. And when it came time to move, they and their son, actually, they were married, it was a couple, and they and their son came and helped me move all my stuff and get it packed up and loaded up. Amazing. And so I always remember that when I'm going through something that I think is just terrible. I remember how upset I was about that, how terrible I thought that situation was. And it turned out to be such a big blessing. Look back through your past and think of times that you I'm sure you have some where you thought this was terrible, awful, horrible, and it turned out to be good. Remind yourself of those times and use those to help yourself have some hope that things are going to be different. So another thing that can help you, depending upon what you're dealing with, is if you're having trouble grieving, like a loved one has passed, there are all kind of grief support groups. Grief Share is a very powerful one. You may find one, a support group on grief at your church, at a community center. If you're dealing with other kind of issues, Celebrate Recovery is another great support group. And there's all kind of support groups for whatever it is that you're dealing with. Being with other people who've experienced the same thing that you've experienced is helpful. Obviously, with COVID, it's more difficult, but there's all kind of Facebook groups if you can't do it in person. And then a lot of people are doing their things on Zoom, virtual now. So look into that. That can be very helpful. If you're also, maybe you're not really grieving anymore and you're kind of wanting to start enjoying life again, Find a meetup group that likes to do things you want to do. Maybe runners or hikers or quilting or reading books and talking about them. There's so many different groups out there who are doing different things and different hobbies. Start thinking about what you would like to do. Maybe you're like, I don't even know what I like to do. Maybe you've spent your whole life taking care of someone else and now you're on your own. But this can be a great, wonderful thing. You're getting to figure out who you are, what you like. There are no boundaries. Just think outside the box. What things did you used to like to do, but what things did you never even think about that you might like to do? So another thing is volunteering. Get busy at your church. Get busy in your community. Volunteering and helping people is a wonderful way to move out of sadness and depression. As you help people and bless them, you will be blessed in even more than you blessed them. I know this from my own experience. Keep on thinking outside the box. What things are possibly interesting? When you have this change, you can either fight it, like I used to do, like I told you at the beginning, just fight it. I hate this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to live through this. I'm just upset. I'm just mad. You can do that. You have the right to do that. But you are not going to enjoy that. And it actually will end up tearing up and destroying your body because of the cortisol and all those angry hormones that will actually destroy your immune system. And I was hearing a story the other day of people that were actually exhibiting physical symptoms, and the problem was the stress that they were not dealing with. Once they found a way to deal with the stress, they ended up not having the physical symptoms anymore. So you get to choose what you want to do. Who would you like to be? What would you like to do? Where would you like to go? One last thing, and of course, you know that I'm going to tell you this, is get professional help if you need help. You could need a psychiatrist, you could need a therapist, you could need a counselor, or you could need a coach. Just depends upon your situation. I would love to have a free session. I'm offering that with you. There's a link at the bottom of the show notes. I would love to talk with you and see if you thought that working with me would be something that would help you. Schedule as a free session. I don't do any sales talk. I just like to talk and help you and see where you want to go from there. Meanwhile, I hope you are gaining maybe some tips to help you moving through the changes in your life. Have a great week.